Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Dadman Walking 55 here, coming to you 1 minute after 8 on the East Coast of the good old USFA. And hey, it's all coming down to these last few weeks of the season. We are now entering championship week, the glorious week where the conference titles will be handed out. Not like the old days where it's best record in regular season. I think the SEC was the first championship game back in 1992, which was Alabama, Florida. What a classic game that was. And, ever since everybody else jumped on the bandwagon behind the SEC. But it's all good. It's for the greater good of college football. It's been a wonderful time of over the years, and the matches that have happened, the pageantry, the importance of so many of these games and what they mean to the schools, the conferences, and really to the national title landscape. But we've got a changing landscape every day, it seems like, coming these days and into the future. We've got conference realignments. We've got all kinds of silly stuff that's going on. And I recently had Culture Casino on to talk with me about some things from the SEC, from the conference realignments and the transfer portal, the name, image, likeness, and all that stuff. So go back and catch that stream for us that we had that one time. But hey, tonight is going to be a geek football nerds night with this. I want to say hi real quick to the chat. Corey Cochran, good to see you as always, sir. This guy, JT Kirk, who's here. Mrs. Dadman Walking, love you being here, who also prepared my slides tonight. And Stunning is Hoy here. Oi, good to see you, Stunning, as always. So now, let me, without further ado, because we're going to try to be on a little bit of a time frame. We got a lot to do tonight. We got 5 conferences to do, so we've got to be a little more focused, not as squirrel chasing as like I'd like to do sometimes. But let me go. The format will be, each person on the panel will present at least one conference. I've got 2. I will be presenting the matchups and some of the information from the Atlantic Coast Conference and from the Pacific 12 Conference, or Pac-12 for short. So, hey, we're going to do that in alphabetical order. We'll start with the ACC, and then we will go to the Big 10, the Big 12, Pac-12 will be the next one, finally with the SEC. So without further ado, let me go ahead. I'm the ACC. So we'll bring in the Big 10 because 10 is less than 12. We'll bring in his guy. I wonder if I should even, I'll say, damn it, JT, tonight. You took my coach from Oregon State, JT. JT Kirk representing the Big 12. Hell, JT, how are you tonight?
Big 10. Yes. Exactly. I am doing well, thanks. That new coach is going to be interesting at Michigan State. I am
y'all are going to be good.
They finally found someone.
Yeah, dude. It's one of those, because of the craziness of the Pac-12. How can you stay at a school like Oregon State or Washington State where you don't know what their future is financially going to be? There's no guarantee they're going to have the athletic budgets. I mean, if you don't have that contract. So,
well, here's the other thing. The other wrinkle in all of this, right? We lost our QB last year, into this past season, to, what was it, Tennessee?
Auburn.
Through the portal.
Auburn.
Yep. Yeah, right. Try to get him out of my brain entirely. So we had a new QB, young guy.
Yeah.
And he's already out because apparently he grew up in Oregon and he did not get an offer, and he thought he deserved an offer from Oregon State, did not get one. And so now that we have the coach from Oregon State coming in, he said, nope, I'm out.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. And maybe this coach is better than what this QB realizes, not giving him an offer. Because,
Jonathan Smith is a hell of a player in college. He was a quarterback when Ojo Cinco and TJ Houshmandzadeh were the receivers there. A damn good coach as well as a quarterback. So you guys, I think, got a better coach than what you had even before.
Oh yeah. Well, and I guess my point is maybe he's smarter than what this QB really thinks, because this QB was no great He wasn't the second coming of Tom Brady. If you get so. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what they do next year with so many players already have hitting the portal.
I know it happens, and that's one. Like I said on the chat that I have a culture, we talked about things like that. So let's move on to the Big 12 conference, representing Big 12. And if you're anywhere in Texas, especially if you're in the big city of Austin, this guy said he's going to bring the noise and say something really, really bad about Texas. It's Whoopa Troopa. Whoopa.
Oh, hi. How's it going?
How are you? I'm good. How are you tonight?
Oh, doing good. It's funny. There's two things I wanted to say real quick. First of all, I have a friend named Jonathan Smith. So when the news broke, I'm like, hey, congrats. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't you see? You just got hired.
Nice contract, coach.
Right. He's like, I wish
Right.
I got that kind of money.
Now, Whoopa, you're a resident Baylor fan, though, obviously. But tell us about your love for the great state of Texas and specifically Austin and those Longhorns.
I don't mind the state of Texas. The state of Texas is just fine, but the University of Texas, they're not the nicest people. And it's interesting because there's a lot of people who probably go to Texas right now and hype up a lot of stuff, and they weren't even alive the last time Texas was relevant in the national conversation. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'll get to that later.
Michigan of the state of Texas, where they brag about their win record, and it they count dental schools and everything when it was still leather helmets and
No,
when
Florida counts FSU because
they're not the meanest fans. There's some other teams that are real jerks. It's just I remember when they barely beat my team Baylor when we had our first, second, and third string quarterback hurt. We were literally using a wide receiver at quarterback, and they beat us by like 4 points, I think, and they were celebrating like they just won the national championship. I'm like, it's not very impressive. Like our season is pretty much over, but I'm happy for you guys, I guess.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, okay. Well, Whoopa, I know that you've had a frustrating year for your team. I will now introduce the last part of our panel, representing the SEC. As you know, that I normally, excuse me, my shows this year have been focused on the SEC, but with taking two conferences, I needed to delegate it. Well, I could not think of another finer SEC fan himself, knowledgeable above all people. And I tell you what, happy for him that his team did well this year. The last couple of weeks they had some painful losses though. But let me bring in the great Small Time Republic. Hell, Small Time.
Hello, and you're too kind calling me an expert. I'm very much an amateur.
That's okay. We all have fun here together. That's the main point. How are you doing tonight?
The important thing is you can always call yourself an expert.
That's true.
Exactly.
Doing well. You just mentioned having a wide receiver play quarterback and almost winning the game. The only time I can recall that happening in a game that actually mattered to both teams, several years ago, Kentucky beat Tennessee with literally one of their starting wide receivers at quarterback.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yep.
And he couldn't throw the ball.
No, he couldn't.
They had no running game. Yeah.
Yep.
They didn't even try to throw the ball. That's what's so crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, I tell you what, you guys are bowl eligible this year. That's good for you, especially winless in the conference last year. But you called it. You said that don't write off New Mexico State, and then you have that at home, and then that tragic last play last week against Alabama. So
yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if New Mexico State beats Liberty to win the Conference USA title this Saturday. Well, I think it's tomorrow night, but regardless, I would not be surprised. They played really well against Auburn.
Yes, they did, and
they played better against Auburn than Alabama.
Yeah, that was a really surprising game. Go ahead, Whoopa.
Oh, I work. I work a lot of football stuff. I actually worked that game. That was very interesting to see.
Which one?
Yeah.
The New Mexico State
New
Auburn
Mexico
game?
State Auburn game, yeah.
In what regard? How since you were covering it, what do you mean? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Oh, I was covering. So we did it live, and I was covering the Auburn offense. And first of all, the Auburn offense had 5 offensive plays in the first quarter.
Because didn't Hugh Freeze apologize for that? Because he was like, we ran no offensive plays. He was apologizing for how little time they were on the field.
It was. I mean, they did not run a lot of plays. It was an easy game for me, which is nice. But it was just interesting to see because obviously not watching the New Mexico side, you just seeing it like, oh well, Auburn should win this one, and then you saw it rack up, not to not even close. It was pretty interesting. Sorry, I'm not trying to rub it in. It was interesting.
Yeah, in New Mexico State, they, at least I know coming into the Auburn game, they led the nation in terms of the amount of time they run off the play clock before snapping the ball on average.
So, oh yeah, they really ate the clock.
Yeah, they were letting the play clock run down to 1 second, and on top of that, we're converting a lot of third downs. So the time of possession was well into their favor, and that was and New Mexico State had I think maybe 9 penalties in the first half or something like that. So that gave them 9 more plays,
Wow.
essentially.
Yeah. So it's just so funny that Auburn had, but it's hard to look back too critically on Auburn considering where you came from last year, and to get 6 wins to get bowl eligible, you're doing something that the Gators didn't do. So
and doing something that Baylor wasn't even close to.
Yes. So.
Yeah, I mean, really, the past 4 years, Auburn's been around 500, but I think what was maybe most impressive this year was they had 40 transfers on the team, and so they had to pull together a lot of guys that didn't know, the culture that they wanted to establish and that kind of thing. So in that regard, I think they did pretty good. But they ended up being about as good as their record.
There were another team that was based on the quarterback. JT had mentioned Peyton Thorne. Auburn went as he went. When he could run and when he could throw, they moved the ball well. They scored. They were a pretty good offense, but then the games against New Mexico State, Texas A&M, they really could produce nothing, and really was not. It was very painful to watch, I'm sure, but.
Yeah. Well, in the Omen, the child's name was Damian Thorne. So just not saying there's a connection there, just pointing that out.
Yeah, well, hey, all right.
Not saying there's not a connection.
No,
Right.
Not saying it is, not saying there's not. So, folks, but yeah, and we don't have to talk about that last play last week, but hey, I thought you guys were going to beat Alabama the way that game was going. I mean, and that's twice. And see, give Auburn credit. They had Alabama and Georgia at home. The 2 teams that are going to we'll be talking about later that are playing for the SEC title in Atlanta Saturday. Auburn gave both teams probably their toughest game all year against anybody. So, all right, Take care, Stunning.
Yeah, they also lost by 1 touchdown.
Take care.
Yeah, they also lost by 1 touchdown to Ole Miss, which is the 3rd best SEC team.
Hey, you know what? It's close. I tell you what, like I said, there's positive. There's reason to be positive. I will say I would rather be an Auburn fan than a Florida fan this day and age. I'll be seriously, because I just, especially after watching Florida and the stories that came out at that game against FSU, lack of discipline. I just, you're in the second year. You're supposed to be getting better, not regressing. And hey, we'll look positive on everything. Tonight's is victory celebrations of victories, and Mr. Niblick's here to hold JT Kirk accountable. I know. So
now, didn't FSU Florida get a little bit chippy?
Yes, that game, it always does because of Florida State, but apparently there was some really nasty stuff with some of the Gator players at home and stuff like that. It just
That one hit on, is it Rodemaker?
Rodemaker. Yeah.
Like I think those two guys both looked like they lowered their helmet on him. I was ooh, that's
the angle I saw is I thought he was sliding. Maybe I'm confusing him with another play, which I might be. Is I thought he was sliding feet first, and they came over the top, and it just happened to hit him. But
I never know. Most of the times, I think it's not purposeful, but it was kind of. I can understand why people would be upset. That was a. Is he set to? Well, I guess we'll figure out. I don't remember if he's set to play. Well, I guess we'll hear that soon.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead. Almost did an SEC wrap up right there, but hey, we're going to go ahead. We're 17 minutes into the hour, and so we got 7 people watching. So thank y'all. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Bring your friends. This is going to be a great night of football. I tell you, if you don't think you can nerd out and geek with football, tonight is with these great guys here. Great panel. And follow us over on the Twitch side also. All right. With that said, we have our first conference for the night that we're going to discuss, and that is the Atlantic Coast Conference, which is kind of an interesting thing here that we have here. We've got I'm bringing up my slides now. We actually have a very interesting and kind of an unpredictable matchup that we're facing here this year. We don't have the typical Clemson, Virginia Techs. We don't have your normal teams that have been in this matchup in the last 2 years, the Carolinas. We actually have a first-time appearance by the Louisville Cardinal, and and as we'll see, I'm going to bring up some stats.
Never
with this.
made it before.
They had never made the ACC championship game. Nope.
I'm kind of surprised because they've had some good teams at least.
They've had some good teams. So I'm going to bring this up. We're going to see the two teams side by side compared here with this. Also, taking a look at Florida State and Louisville here. I'm going to read off some information. So let's see. In this game, what we have is I'm not used to this basketball type stuff where you have this scramble everybody. I'm used to east, west, north, south. This used to be like a Atlantic coastal type of arrangement, but they've gone to this everybody in one pile. The top 2 teams make it, like we'll see with the Pac-12 later. But Florida State ended up 8-0 in the conference. Louisville was 7-1 in the conference. Scary to think that the North Carolina State Wolfpack almost made this championship game, and Georgia Tech was only a game behind them. I mean, that's how weird this year was. You even have Virginia Tech at 5-3 in the conference, 6-6 overall, as ahead of the Clemson Tigers. So, folks, this was a really weird year in the ACC. FSU comes into the matchup 12-0. Louisville Cardinals 10-2. The Seminoles are ranked 4th nationally. The Cardinals ranked 14th in the nation. Okay, so basically we've got these two teams will face off in the 2023 ACC Football Championship on Saturday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. This game, I do not know if y'all know the history of the ACC Football Championship. Originally, in the first 3 years, it was in Jacksonville, Florida. And then I can claim I was one of the few people that actually attended all 3 with my oldest kid. Well, no, with a friend of mine, because we were able to make all 3 championship games. First 2 years was Virginia Tech and Florida State. Big matchups, sellouts. The third year was Georgia Tech and Wake Forest, 2 small private schools in miserable weather. There was a 4th year. Then it was Boston College and Virginia Tech, and nobody showed up. And that's when the game moved. So I dare you to go bring a Boston College or small schools like that down and expect people to attend it. That's a little bone I had to pick because, we got, the city got crap matchups. This would have been a great matchup for Florida to have FSU, a team relatively local, against the Louisville Cardinal down here playing this game. And that was a lot of the talk back in the days when the conference went to this game was Miami and Florida State would be playing, and they would end up playing this game every year. Good crowds, either Miami or Florida State would make the game, and they didn't. Both teams fell on hard times, and then you got the matchups that they got. Well, with this game, like I said before, it will be the first matchup, first time Louisville will appear in this game, while the Seminoles will make their 6th trip to the championship game, the first time since 2014. Had appearances in 2005, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014, and when they won a 3rd consecutive ACC championship with a 37-35 win over Georgia Tech. So, all right. We have 11-0 Seminoles, 8-0 in the conference, and it's the 10th time that Florida State has recorded a perfect 8-0 conference record. Well, with that being said, though, folks, we will take a look now at the stats of this game with where they've got. We got the Louisville comes in with. Stupid StreamYards was covering my screen on my StreamYard screen. Louisville comes into this averaging 33 points a game on offense, giving up 20 on defense, while the Seminoles are averaging close to 39 points a game by giving up 17 points a game. One factor that has changed in recent weeks is the loss of Jordan Travis by Florida State. Their senior quarterback, was responsible for many of these points. This Rodemaker is the backup quarterback. He got hurt in the Florida game. If he's available, still 25 points against 24, 25 points against Florida was not the same FSU offense that you're used to seeing this year. So this could be a game where the offensive stats for the season might be distorting this game to some degree. Now, the defensive stats you can't count would be the same. FSU's still been pretty stingy on defense this year. Question is, what kind of offensive production can they get from the quarterback position that they will have to replace with the loss of Travis? FSU overall running has been more of a passing team, 276 yards a game, with 156 yards on the ground. Turnover margin 11, more turnovers than their opponents, while Louisville it's a little more on the running side, not by much, still fairly balanced. 255 yards a game, rushing about 184 yards a game. Not as good on the turnover margin with the defense, +3 though, but still on the positive side. So you can look and see that this game, FSU probably you can get an advantage on the defensive side with this game coming into it. But will that defensive edge, they will need that defensive edge to make up for the loss on the offensive side with their starting quarterback. As we look at the overall schedule, I'm going to review the schedule real quickly here, and then we'll throw it up to some conversation. As you can see, FSU goes perfect in the non-conference season. Closest call was at Boston College, but that was a game that really was in hand, but they had the lead, but they were able to stop Boston College at the end. The closest really was at Clemson, that they took a 31-24 win into overtime. They had to score to tie it in regulation, and and they win in overtime. So after that, they pretty well coasted. They a little struggle with Miami, struggled with Florida last week, but still once they got going, it was all she wrote for the Gators. So. Well, you look at Louisville, they've had 2 losses on the year, a loss at Pittsburgh and a loss in an interstate rivalry game with Kentucky just last week, 38-31. Imagine Kentucky scoring 31 points. I know that's a pet peeve of Whoopa, but you look at it, pretty balanced season. Both teams trying to look at common opponents. Both beat Virginia Tech. Louisville beat Virginia Tech 34-3, while FSU won 39-17. Louisville beat 38-31 on the road. Florida State won 27-20 at home. Duke, FSU wins at home 38-20, and Louisville beats Duke 23-0 at home. Louisville also beats Notre Dame earlier in the year 33-20. And just some basic schedule comparison as we see Louisville doubled at Boston College 56-28, and while FSU had that hold on victory 31-29 over Boston College. So folks, any thoughts of you guys with this game? I've presented what we from the number side, some observations, some news, what's going on with these teams. Any thoughts about this game from the panel?
Well, before the stream, somebody mentioned the FSU quarterback, Tate Rodemaker, taking a, pretty good shot there against Florida, even though he came back into the game a couple of plays later. I think I haven't heard of any talk of him having a concussion or anything like that, but if he in fact did, and Florida State's just trying to sit on that information, that would be a factor if they do have to play another quarterback in the game, because that would basically be down their third string, and certainly would probably increase the odds of Louisville being able to take it. The experts seem to think this was a pretty even game in terms of the line and everything. So nothing would really surprise me here as far as who wins.
Yeah, I don't see any word, and I'm double checking. I do not see anything listing him on the injury report or is not playing, Tate Rodemaker. So
yeah, I was surprised he came back in the game that quickly.
Yeah.
Because
last week he go ahead,
concussed.
Yeah, I tell you, it shows you what they still will do to win a game. He was below 50% in his pass completions, but they were able to beat a Florida team that was did not have any offensive firepower itself, and just really was, on the way down, concluding really another dismal season. Well, it was actually for Florida was actually going to be good, but it turned bad quickly halfway through the season. But for FSU, hey, they're there. You win and you advance. That's all you do here.
Yep. I think one thing that'll be very interesting, let's say Florida State beats Louisville in a close game and some other things happen. Is there any scenario where Florida State gets leapfrogged by Oregon and or Alabama? That is what will be.
Or Ohio State.
True, but Ohio State, it would be hard to move Ohio State ahead of Florida State if Florida State wins, and with Ohio State not playing Saturday. It would be even
harder. However, they've done it before.
That's true. Yeah. 2014.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, see, guys, go ahead.
In 2014, if Baylor and TCU had a Big 12 championship game that year, then that might have kept Ohio State out from getting that fourth spot.
Back in the good old days.
Yep.
I tell you, I'm all in for Florida State on this one. I don't know if it's just the feeling. There's something intangible about it. And I know that's kind of a cop-out, but I don't know. I've got the feeling that Florida State's going to do it.
Okay.
There's something about the 2 wins from Louisville. The fact that, basketball, they're a good school, but football, I just think Florida State has more of that history. And coming from outside of a regular watcher of that conference, if I'm going to say, who's the more of a media darling? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's Florida State all day.
Yep.
Well, we will pick these games at the end of the thing, but I'm curious to see your thoughts, and that's interesting because down here they're really a darling because for a number of years they were really, really bad. They were really not competitive. A lot of the fans were not going to the game. Empty seats everywhere, and Mike Norvell, small town Republican. I've debated Billy Napier a bit, and he's like, you're like, have some patience of recruiting, and a lot of people are pointing at Mike Norvell as the reason why people in Gainesville should be patient, because look at what's happened in Tallahassee, but because there were some really dark days in Mike Norvell's first year. I mean, there were all kinds of off the field problems, challenges players against the coaches, and they managed to steady the ship, right it, and they're now potentially 2 games away from playing for a national championship.
Yep. Now you got to give credit to the Louisville coach, Brom, going 10-2 in his first season.
Oh yeah,
there at Louisville. That's
before that. I mean, he took. I only know this because I have a buddy who likes Western Kentucky. He took them to their best season in their relatively short FBS history.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not just that. I think he's kind of proven to be a very good college coach at the very least. He's succeeded in Group of Five. He's already succeeding here in the ACC. So, yeah, he's the real deal, I think. I wonder if he stays at Louisville or kind of might get snatched up by someone here sooner or later.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, he played there, so
that's true.
I think it's kind of a Mario Cristobal situation where, you're not going to see Cristobal leave Miami.
Unless he's fired.
Right.
But it does not. Well, you also have the Scott Frost part of that situation.
That's true.
So, yes,
that's true.
Yeah, because Brom was last coaching at, let's see, I thought was at Purdue.
Yeah.
Who have been a little worse for wear.
Which it's easier to win at Louisville than it is Purdue.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he actually
very true.
He actually performed pretty well. Had some pretty decent teams at Purdue. So, why couldn't the Gators have hired Jeff? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that again. But anyway, that's not about Florida tonight. It's about the great rest of everybody else. And congratulations to the FSU Seminoles and to the Louisville Cardinals for getting to this spot. Any other thoughts about this matchup? I mean, Mike Norvell, remember, was coaching at Memphis, I think, before, and they took a shot on him coming up to a Power 5 school.
Well, the natives were getting restless in Tallahassee a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely,
like you mentioned, so they their patience is certainly paying off. One thing people don't realize about Florida State, you get outside of Tallahassee and there's not really an enormous Florida State fan base like there is for like an Alabama or a Georgia. I mean, it's Florida State's kind of like Auburn in that immediate area around those schools. Yeah, they have the majority of the fans, but you don't have to get too far away before the the state schools or have a bigger fan base.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other thoughts, JT or Whoopa, before we move on to the Big Ten?
No, that's all I have.
All right. Well, we kick this around. We'll come back, like I said, at the end when we do our wrap-up talk. We're going to try to pick these games and see which of us do the best on it. So, all right, JT, you have the con now, sir.
All righty. Well, let's see here if I can get this presented out.
Okay. Looking for
I did practice this, but I'll boomer it. Don't worry.
Well, we'll boomer it together, so we're good company. So there it is. You're added to the stage. Yes, there you go. The Big 12.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So as a Michigan State alum, I graciously volunteered here for the Big Ten Conference, the best conference that we're going to be talking about this evening. Don't let anyone else here on the panel tell you otherwise. But anyway, so the championship game will be this Saturday, kickoff 8 p.m. As always, the Big Ten championship game takes place at the Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Colts play in Indianapolis, Indiana. And if you're looking to watch that in many markets, it'll be on Fox or streaming on Fox Sports, YouTube TV, Sling TV, Hulu, Fubo TV, etc. I always like to say where you can find the game because sometimes that can be a challenge. Anyway, we'll move on. So,
absolutely.
Let's see here. So if you see up here in the top right, this is a map of the U.S. where a state has a school in the Big Ten. It has expanded into New Jersey, Maryland, and Nebraska in recent years, and Penn State before that. But up until next year, this will be a very regional conference. So Indiana is the perfect location to hold this game every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the most neutral travel site for fans and teams alike. So
Yeah,
a brief history.
because
go
next
ahead.
year, like you're alluding to, it's going to stretch all the way to the Pacific Coast,
Exactly.
Washington
So
down to California.
Plus,
a
you
lot
always
of big
know it's
changes
going
for
to
the
be,
conference, just in terms of even when will the games be on.
Mm-hmm.
and you'll always
it-
know that it'll be a neutral site because there's no way Indiana's playing in the Big 12, the Big 10 championship.
Well, but they're in Bloomington, which is southern Indiana. I think Purdue is probably the closest.
Yeah, West
And you-
Lafayette. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're not on this list yet. Or actually, they were last year. But anyway, so the Big Ten was one of the newer conferences to getting a conference championship game, and I think it caused a lot of issues in the years preceding. So I was happy to see it finally arrive. And I was happy because my school was the first one back in 2011 on a very close game to Wisconsin. Now, the divisions that you see below right now are called East and West. The original version of this was Leaders and Legends, and the schools were in different divisions. So you'll see that Wisconsin and Nebraska were playing in the second year, whereas now they're in the same division. But what I wanted to kind of go over here was the fact that you have these divisions that are very stacked towards the east and not towards the west. So I'm hoping with these new schools in, there's some rebalancing. But you'll see that Wisconsin is pretty darn good about making this game almost every year. So it takes them being down for anyone else to have a chance. And this year, that chance went to Iowa. They were 7-2 in the conference. I don't really like to talk about the overall because they play non-conference games quite often the way the SEC does. Dadman, I think you call those paycheck games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but the problem is with Iowa,
Mhm.
they sort of have a problem with winning some of those paycheck games, or they make them a little close, like beating South Dakota 7-5 or something.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't get Whoopa started on them in a bowl game against Kentucky.
Oh,
About I had Admiral Teague on a few weeks ago, and Admiral Teague's like, he was like enjoying football, and he's doing research and all. I'm like, what game did you watch? She's all, it was Iowa, Wisconsin, or Iowa, Nebraska game. It was like it ended 10-7 or something.
Oh, I love that. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, which Nebraska, amazingly, I didn't know this until I was watching their game against Iowa. They have not been to a bowl game since 2016.
Wow.
Yep.
Which is
Yep.
wild.
Yeah.
No,
when they moved into the Big Ten, they very quickly fell off into a husk of their former self. I believe.
Husk.
Well, yeah. I forgot that's even still a joke because I've used it so many times. You'll see them getting blown out. I mean, just blown out in 2012 by Wisconsin, and that I believe is the last time they've ever done anything of note in the conference at all. Yeah. So if you look here at the East,
if I
part of the issue,
real quick, just when you're talking about that Iowa Northwestern game, the fun thing about it was 10-7, and they played it in Wrigley Field, and it was the sixth highest scoring game that was played in Wrigley Field. So 5 baseball games had more points than that football game.
Exactly, it's like that. Let's say hello real quick to Squeaka. Hi, Squeaka, for dropping behind. Like, hey, y'all, if you're around, even if you don't keep up with football at all, this is a powerhouse panel. This is one of the best panels I've ever assembled. These guys know this stuff, so sit back, relax, and get thoroughly entertained by these guys' knowledge and experience. So, and JT, yeah, because that's an interesting point. You got we joke about Iowa having baseball game scores, but playing in a real baseball field. But
so, all right, so whenever you think about the Big Ten, up until maybe another realignment, everything comes out of the Big Ten East. If Wisconsin's having a down year, it's going to be Big Ten East almost every single time. History's proven that out. And when you look at the teams, now Michigan State had a lot of coaching issues this year, but you're looking at a top tier in the history of this game of being a Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan State, with Maryland, Rutgers, and Indiana being basement dwellers. You had a really have and have not situation there. And then that's why you always see committees making a case for Ohio State and Michigan, or two teams out of the Big Ten East that you're going, okay, why do these teams have to beat up on each other every year? Why can't they rebalance these? I don't know, but that's how it is. So the Michigan record here is 9 wins, 0 losses in conference. And I wanted to show a key difference here that they have 355 points for versus Iowa's 131 points for. So there is a stark difference in offensive production here, while they're within 2 points for points against. So they both have fantastic defenses here, but there's a gigantic disparity on offense.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. First to the University of Iowa Hawkeyes. For both these teams, strengths, weaknesses, and the X factor that might put them over the edge. So Iowa has the 4th ranked defense in the nation. They also have a head coach. I wanted to put the middle name in here, Kirk James Ferentz. This is
nice.
James Kirk James. Yeah, anyway. This is his, I think I calculated the 24th season, and he's 68 years old. So the man's been there a long time. He wants to win badly. He wants to win now. I don't see him getting snatched up by any other school.
I think he's the
here to
longest
stay.
tenured coach. Yeah.
Yeah, Kirk Ferentz,
Yeah. He's been there for forever. So you've got players that have bought into him and his system. They're at ease that he's not going to jump if they come to his school. That's helped in recruiting and a lot of other things that way. But the main bullet point here for Iowa strength, again, is the defense. Now, their weaknesses, unfortunately, they've got some more than strengths. The best game of their year, their worst game of the year, it should read, is versus Penn State, who was ranked 10th that week. And it was a 0-31 rout. They also lost to an unranked Minnesota, and they have close wins against other teams that aren't anything to write home about, to Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, and Nebraska. And by close wins, I mean a touchdown or less. So their record at 7-2 isn't quite as great as what that number might portray on paper. They also have the 124th ranked offense in Division I football. So that is not going to help them against a very stingy defense against the Wolverines.
See, I think that's a good point. You talk about the things that may look good on paper, like FSU earlier, their offensive points per game, but now the situation's changed with the loss of the starting quarterback. Now, like in this case, 7-2 looks good, but looking at those 4 of those 7 wins against some very bad competition.
Right, exactly. So for them, the X factor is the ability to find a win. And I know that can be painful to watch them scoring 9 points in a game or 7 points in a game, but they've managed to find wins against these teams that didn't. And, that does count for something.
Yeah.
So now over to my least favorite team of the conference, the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. Don't get confused with the other University of Michigans in Dearborn or Flint, Michigan.
Is there anyone who's not a Michigan fan who likes Michigan?
I haven't met one. There's a famous kind of term for a lot of Michigan fans. They're called Walmart Wolverines, because there are more people that are fans of Michigan in the state of Michigan than ever actually went and took a class there. And that's been true for many, many years, because it used to be the Big 2, Little 8, where it was Ohio State and Michigan through the 70s and into the 80s. And so they were kind of the team that people just rooted for, kind of like an NFL team in the state. So anyway, to their strengths, they have the number 1 rated defense in the nation on the rating system that I looked on anyway. That might be up for debate with a couple other schools, but point is, they're good. They've been to the Big Ten Championship the last 2 years in a row, so this will be a three-peat for the juniors and seniors. And then they have a strength where they they're supposed to have a good strength of schedule. I looked at these schools and I said, look, they've had a lot of weeks against bad teams where they could blow out a team if they want, or kind of sit back and rest their better players. And that does count for something quite big near the end of the season, right? You're not out a quarterback and playing a wide receiver and some of these other things, right? Their weaknesses, two big weaknesses. I'm going to start with the second one here first. They just played Ohio State a week before this coming game, and that is the smash mouth football game where you get beat up. You get tired, you get beat up, you get run down. They did have some players hurt. Remains to be seen. I haven't seen the injury report yet to see who will actually suit up for Saturday. But, you know, they didn't get a bye week. They didn't play an easy team coming in on the final week. The other big weakness is Coach Jim Harbaugh, or perhaps the lack of him might be a strength. He's embroiled in some scandals, but sometimes he can't get out from underneath himself when, you know, there's tough calls to be made.
Will he be coaching this week or not?
No.
Okay.
No, he had a 4-game suspension. Would remain to be seen if they went to the playoffs, if he would coach one of those or not. But he will not be there this weekend.
I don't know. I think he might be. This might be his first week back.
Will it?
I thought it was a 3-game suspension, but let me.
Okay, well.
Now the confusion there might be he was trying not to miss that first of the 3 games and still ended up having to miss it. So yeah, I mean he's missed 6 out of 12 games so far, so that's crazy.
I mean, if you believe he wasn't sitting on a cell phone the whole time calling into people, right. I mean, I don't have evidence of that, but telling somebody they can't be at the game, okay, he could be in the locker room up, you know.
Yeah. Well, this,
whatever.
according to the DetroitNews.com, is, well, they want me to subscribe, but screw you guys. I can read through the
they always
headlines.
do that. They always do that.
It's saying that Harbaugh was able to coach practice all week leading up to games, returns to the sidelines Saturday night in Indianapolis. So he should be returning to the field. Yep.
Now, he does not have a great record against ranked teams. He has, in general, a losing record against ranked teams. So he has a bad record with bowl games. This is an opportunity for him to live up to that and lose again. However, they're X factors. They've been sign stealing allegedly. So let's see what they still have in that Rolodex of theirs. And the X factor is they are by far and away the media darling in the Big Ten. Now you can allege or not allege all you want. I did not have a horse in the race, Ohio State versus Michigan, for example. Just the way you hear him talk on TV, the way you see some of these calls go, the way some of the reviews go, I really had to wonder what was going on between them in Ohio State and some of the scrutiny one team was getting over another. This is going to be the Michigan show. And I think they're going to make way more money. That's the other X factor. They stand to make way more money from that fan base having Michigan go to the playoff than Iowa getting passed over. They just will.
It always happens. It's like when Alabama shows up. Everybody's second fiddle to Alabama, no matter what.
Exactly.
Well, it's typically whatever team gives that conference the best odds of getting in the CFP, those officials, even if it's unconscious, they're going to favor that team that's in the top 5 or top 10.
Right.
It's for the benefit of their wallet too to do that.
Yep. Maybe a play is ruled a football move when maybe they were bobbling a little bit or they stepped out, or there's not so much scrutiny on whether the ball really crossed the plane in the end zone.
Yeah.
You know,
until you have national officials, that will be a problem.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that there's going to be blatant cheating or that there was cheating or anything like that going on, but there is bias there. There is a bias there that you can't ignore. So not to drag this on too much longer, we'll get to the next page. My final thoughts and prognostications on this. I'm saying watch for this blowout alert. Michigan scored 2.7 times the points Iowa has in conference matchups. The defenses are pretty darn equivalent. if you're looking at that, if one person's got the offense and the other team doesn't, what does that equal? Again, strength of schedule, I looked these up. Third, I don't necessarily buy. Iowa 26th. These are pretty weak. I think they were weaker than what these numbers really tell us. What is not going to happen, I think, is you're not going to get a stadium that's all Iowa or all Michigan. This is fairly neutral site, and both of these fan bases like to travel.
I can speak to Iowa. Iowa's been here a few times, and they bring a lot of people.
Yes.
Even with a 6-5 team, it's amazing the way that a 6-5 team will travel to a bowl game. It's amazing.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Even if they're only scoring 7 points a game, they still travel.
Yeah. In fairness, Dad, man, half of those are retirees.
Good.
That may be true as well.
Weather. Yes.
That may be true as well. Now, I already kind of went into this as a hot take. TV, media, the Big Ten want Michigan to win. As Iowa, you got to come in with a huge chip on your shoulder to overcome that. And Michigan State did that on Michigan for a number of years, just coming in angry to that game because no one wanted them to win, and they did. Mm-hmm. You've got the sign stealing alleged thing going on there. I think that may play a dimension to this. Kind of remains to be seen. And then I know we were going to talk maybe the results of these games at the end, but I'm unfortunately predicting Michigan in a landslide victory.
Okay. That's okay.
With some players maybe sitting out the second half, getting ready for the playoff. Mm-hmm. And please don't take anything I say as, fodder for wagers or anything of that nature.
Or none of us. Yes.
Right. And then just some sources I had for my data there.
All right. Well, that's the Big 10. I keep doing it. Damn it. You guys have got to get your numbers right.
You almost did it. You almost got through.
I almost got through it. That whoop.
And hail Lisa.
Hello, Lisa. Welcome.
Lisa.
Who's a avid athlete herself. But hey, welcome. And any other thoughts, Small Time Republic Lupa? Take a few moments here with the Big Ten. Because I really don't have much to add to JT Kirk. I think you're right on. I think the numbers in this case tell a lot, and but go ahead, Small Time Republic.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those scenarios where Michigan should handle them pretty easily. As far as the sign stealing thing, I think every school does that. It's just that Michigan was so brazen in as far as sending people out to future opponents, and I think they were using school resources to do it. If you're
allegedly, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Allegedly.
If you're going to do that, you need to be smarter about it, and you need to find a less brazen way to approach that. I mean, the fact that at the Central Michigan game that Connor Stallions was possibly on the sideline with Central Michigan gear on. I mean, that's next level. That's like something out of
another thing I always think is funny about that is it's like you're Michigan and you really need to go figure out what Central Michigan's doing. Like, I don't think that should really be a concern of yours.
Well, there was allegations that they were just doing this on a lot of schools, and then other schools would potentially, so the allegations go, would contact them and they would sell them data.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Perfect segue, JT Kirk. Small Time, you might be able to help me with this one. What came up this year because I make no secret, I listened to the sports animal out of Knoxville, the Tennessee Volunteers. After this story started breaking, there started to be reports and rumors about Shane Beamer in South Carolina being somewhere connected or on the receiving end of potentially on the end of receiving information. Because if you look back last year, what happened with Tennessee against South Carolina? They gave up 63 points to a team that could only when they played Florida, got one touchdown because a punter threw a touchdown on a fake punt. And that they go 63 points on. I was watching that game live on StreamYards with a friend, and we're talking, and a Tennessee fan, and it was like a video game. They could not stop or do anything. It's like South Carolina was ahead of them all the time. So that got some traction up in Knoxville earlier this season in discussion about, did did South Carolina get some information last year? And this goes back a few years.
They also beat Clemson a week or two after that, and it was also an upset. So, yeah, the whole thing with South Carolina, I remember that was only like a story for a couple of days, and then it seemed to kind of get kind of swept out of the mainstream at least. So yeah, so I have no idea if South Carolina may have been doing the same thing. Again, I think a lot of these schools are doing this kind of thing. They're just smarter at it than Michigan was.
Well, I have a friend an old friend of mine that always said, Mrs. knows who he is. He always said, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So
exactly.
And that's the world of college sports.
Yep.
Now, another component to this, you're saying every school does that. Sure. I totally agree. If you're not doing intel on the other team, what are you doing? However, you got to look at the head coach and say, okay, is his head 100% focused on winning this game, or is there any portion of it where his attention is talking to the legal teams, worrying about, his future and penalties from the NCAA or the Big Ten, that type of thing? And that's not the type of distraction you want at this late in the season. No. So whether, it has direct impact on the game by terms of, what calls are being intercepted, that type of thing, that's one part of it. But there's also the inevitable piece of distraction against the coaching staff that you just don't want. You don't want it.
It's possible that Jim Harbaugh will be coaching the Chicago Bears next year, regardless of what happens.
Panthers. I saw reports of both.
But yeah, I mean, one way or another, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to give the Big Ten commissioner a very firm handshake after the game on the podium. So very firm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's our Big 12. Whoop, any other thoughts on the Big 10? Damn it, Mark. God, it's like, Whoopa loves it every time I do it. But Whoopa, you got any other thoughts on this here?
I don't think so. I think that's all I got. It's interesting. I enjoy. I like the concept of Iowa football, not watching them, goodness no, but just the fact that you'll have a game that's like 10-7, and then you'll have a game that's like 60-55 or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like, this is the same sport.
Well, let's see. Okay, well, we shall move on. Chat. Anybody in the chat, if you have questions, feel free to question. If you have opinions, opine. And we're talking some football tonight, and got great experts here. So with the conclusion of the Big 10, we now move to Big 12. Whoopa Troopa, and tell us how much you love Texas, or the University of Texas in Austin.
Yeah. So yeah, the Big 12 championship game is between Texas and Oklahoma State. I did not prepare slides. I am sorry. But
it's okay. No, it's okay.
It's very interesting. I mean, first of all, you've got a Texas team. They haven't really done anything of note this season that I can think of. So we'll just skip over them real quick. But no, they've had, they actually had the season after 15 years of saying UT is back. I guess they actually were back this time. Forgive me for not believing them the first 15 times. 15 times before a 6-win season and losing in a bowl game. But besides the point, they've put together a pretty good team. They're pretty much near the top in points per game, 35.1, which is 22nd, and opponents per game, 17.2, which is 12th out of 133. Pretty solid. They've got a really good strength of schedule, I believe, just like off of that non-conference game that they played against Alabama in Alabama and won. I believe it was the first time that Alabama lost in Alabama since 2019, if I remember correctly. So that's a pretty big deal. So, they've had a good season, as much as I don't want them to. They've had a good season. Then you go to Oklahoma State, which is a very weird season.
Now, how did did Oklahoma State win the tiebreaker? It was at the head-to-head against Oklahoma.
They beat Oklahoma. So they beat Oklahoma in what could be the last. What's that? Is it the Red River rivalry?
No, the Red River
that's
versus Texas,
and
Oklahoma. It's the shootout. It's
Yeah, Oklahoma State's Bedlam.
Bedlam. Yes,
Yep.
Bedlam.
They won that it was very surprising. It was actually a really good game. Oklahoma dropped the ball, and it was in Oklahoma State, so it's very interesting. That was a big win for Oklahoma State.
Exactly.
And then meanwhile, you have they got blown out. So they got blown out by two schools. One being UCF. They lost by 42, which UCF is. They went 6-6 this year. They were 3-6 in the Big 12, and then they got blown out. They got blown out by University of South Alabama.
What?
Right.
Now, South Alabama's a powerhouse. Come on now.
Jaguars? Oh my God! You look at.
I mean, they were a powerhouse when I coached them in NCAA 14.
By the way, I am very familiar with University of South Alabama.
It is. Oh yes, you are.
In fact, the place I used to work at was like, gosh, I worked there 17 years, and I think it was maybe 2 miles from the stadium.
Hey. So, yep. Well, let me say, Lisa is asking is looking for questions. What color uniform is most likely to win? And she's trying to come up with questions. And let me say hello to Midnight Media. Good evening to you. Welcome in. Glad to have you with us. We're talking about the Power 5 Conference Football Championships coming up this week. We're currently in the middle of discussing about the Big 12 Conference. And glad to see you. For everybody, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new here, we'd love to have you subscribe and catch up with us on all types of stuff that we do here of different things, from gaming to night football and Fortnite and tonight's we're on football again with this great panel that we've got here assembled, taking on the various conferences. Whoopa, it's also to me with them the close calls, like the BYU. They beat BYU by 6 points.
And it was an overtime win, and they were kind of lucky it went to overtime. They were down by I think 20 plus points at the half.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very weird team.
Beat Central Arkansas 27-13. A bad Arizona State school 27-15. Yeah.
The only thing, so they have those. I wonder if they just play down to competition or something, or they just get lucky. But like every time they've played a ranked opponent, they've won. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Kansas. Mm-hmm. When they played, I don't think Kansas State was ranked when they won, but they beat Kansas State. It's very interesting how they've somehow managed, like, not even like losing close games. They were losing blowouts. The South Alabama was at home. They were at Oklahoma State, and they lost by what's that? Quick math. 26.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
South Alabama.
I do not understand. A very weird team. But
it was close against Iowa State, but that was on the road. But still losing 26 to a mid-major team.
Yeah, I don't get it. I can't place this team. The only thing I can say is when they've played ranked opponents, they've come out with a win every time, which you cannot say about Texas. Just saying.
Well, let me. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, what's up?
I was going to address the chat, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go on. Address.
Okay, I was just going to say the Midnight Media. He joined the Midnight Media joined the live a few weeks ago. Really funny show with the ladies. Yes, always love the ladies around. We are not talking spreads tonight. We are not a gambling site. We do not focus on the gambling. Now, when we pick the games later, it's just going to be for fun. If people use the spreads to pick, they can. But we're not a gambling site. We disclaim any gambling. We just talk straight up winning and losing, and just really we're friends talking about. We love football, college football specifically, and love talking about it. So hey, exactly. Oh yeah, live in Vegas.
I'm really bad at gambling, so you don't want to take anything out.
That's true.
Yes, exactly. It lives in Vegas. Hey, I understand, but that's another thing to have a panel discussion about the influx of gambling on all sports, college especially, and stuff like that. Because I remember the days and age when college. I mean, you did not look at Vegas and lines. I mean, there was the NCAA was hard on that, and now things have changed over the years. But
It's very different.
Like I told Culture Casino when we talked about NILs and conference realignments a few weeks ago, we kept hitting other topics that are like, you need another stream for all this stuff. So, hey, oh my God, Lisa, man, I'm running a respectable channel right now. Oh my gosh, Lisa, leave it now.
She'll have us talking about tight ends before it's over with.
Or the business.
If we were going to do that, that would have been Iowa's time.
There you go.
Tight end you. Yeah.
Tight end you, absolutely.
Yep.
When it's in Jacksonville.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, Whoopa, did you want to talk about Texas any with this game?
Texas.
Because we can look at their schedule real quick here.
They lead the league in being annoying. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
And
they could have beaten Alabama. That game was really close on the road. Yeah.
No, they did a really good job. They've been an interesting team lately because they were crushing opponents. The first 5 weeks, they looked like a legit team, and then you get the loss to Oklahoma at home. Then you get a close win versus Houston, which Houston's not a good team. And then you get they crush BYU, but then you have close win versus Kansas State, which is a good team, to be fair. But then you get close win versus TCU, which is not a good team. They have really fallen off. They're not even making a bowl game this year. After that, they handled business. It's just they had a stretch there where I feel like they can say that about almost. This is a very weird college football season. Almost every team that's been good is like they've had a stretch of games where they're like, you're struggling against this team, really? What's going on? And Texas has had a lot of those recently. Now they absolutely destroyed Texas Tech recently, but before that it was kind of like, you guys are not winning like they were, but they still were winning, and they've got the best. I mean, beating Alabama at home by 10. In Alabama, sorry, by 10. That's a damn good win.
I tell you what, they would have beaten Alabama last year badly because that Austin, Texas is a friggin' riot place. I would like to go to the game. The Gators play there next year. I need to see about getting a ticket to Austin because it looked like a riot with that game. But Alabama would have.
It's interesting. You will
had Quinn Ewers not gotten hurt in that game last year, I think Texas would have routed Alabama in that game.
You will get yelled at, just so you know. If you
understand that. Whoopa, I said I'd go with you. You'd wear your Baylor shirt, I'd wear my Gator shirt, and get yelled at together, right?
Now there are a couple things that Texas will have to accept when coming to the SEC. One is in the Big 12, since Texas, to an extent, was a very dominant force in the Big 12. They kind of made up their own rules in certain ways, in the sense that they're allowed to get in. Their players are allowed to get in your face and do the horns, hand sign, but that if the opposing player did horns down, they would be penalized.
Yeah,
which
ticked me off.
Which is just absurd. Anyway,
it's
the SEC
ridiculous.
is like, nah. If you're gonna do the horns up, your opponent's gonna do the horns down.
Well, it's like the Gator chomp,
Yep.
Yeah,
and
Gators.
The other thing is that the Longhorn Network, where they tried to, keep revenue that they really shouldn't, that's going away. There will be no Longhorn Network.
I was going to ask about the future of that. So that is dissolving completely, right?
That ticks me off so much because the Longhorn Network is the reason that all this stuff started moving in the first place. Like that's why Nebraska and Mizzou left, and Colorado and whoever I forget who the other one was.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it this way: you're showing games for teams where you're getting the revenue for showing that game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crazy. That you're profiting off of other, 50% of what's on the field is the other team.
It's ridiculous. I absolutely. That's why I hate Texas.
Well, and that's also why years ago Texas was potentially going to go to the Pac-10 at the time.
I wish they would have.
And that
I
fell
wish they
apart.
would
It just seemed crazy to me that they could make an entire TV network for one team, just one team. It's
Mhm.
And not
for
share the
all its
profits.
faults, the Big Ten network, at least you get all those different schools and there's enough programming to go around. It just seemed very absorbed from as an outsider to that conference and that state and that school. It seemed very self-absorbed of a school to go
Yeah.
ahead and do that.
Well, you got to understand. I mean, the people who are Texas Longhorns fans, they don't have anything else going for them in their life. They need the whole they need the whole network. They went to a bad school, got a bad degree. They got to have the football.
Yeah.
I had to do it too.
I know.
No, it definitely is frustrating because first of all, the horns down thing is ridiculous. I mean, how soft you have to be that you demand to
Yeah.
like. I don't know. It's not like a big deal. Like I can understand. There's been a lot of things opposing fans have done that are like, wow, it's really classless. But even when Texas fans are yelling at you to go home at half when your team's only down by 7, like I'm not gonna say, oh, they need to stop that. Like that's just part of the game. You just gotta realize that.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing, nothing would make Mike Gundy happier than to beat both Oklahoma and Texas on their way out.
Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. The thing is, everyone is rooting for Texas to lose here. This is 100%. And the interesting thing, so I was going to talk more about the stats. I just got on this tangent because any chance to talk bad about Texas, it's a positive chance.
Yes. It's okay. You wait till I get to the Pac-12. So
yeah, but it's very interesting. So I think you can make a case for Oklahoma State that they've got the two best players on each side of the ball, or the best player on each side of the ball. Their running back, Ollie Gordon, he leads the nation in rushing. He's a monster. It's hard to stop him. And you've got Colin Oliver. He's got 6 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 5 pass defenses. He's a force. I think the thing that you get where like those two players are really good. And you've got they have another player with 6 sacks. They've got a lot of big name players. I guess they have a few big name players, some of the best. I think what the Texas's positive is they have a lot more depth. I mean, after Colin Oliver and kind of who's his name, Nicholas Martin. I didn't know him. I knew Colin Oliver. I didn't know Nicholas Martin. But both these guys who have 6 sacks, they don't have really anyone else who gets the quarterback. Texas has got 4 guys over 4 sacks. They've got a lot of their secondary is very well rounded in Texas. Oklahoma State really only has like 1 guy who's like pretty solid. So I think that's where Oklahoma State is kind of more star power, while Texas is well rounded because their offense they don't really have. I know people talk about Quinn Ewers, but he hasn't had that impressive of a season. Like there hasn't been outside of that Alabama game where he was pretty good. Like he hasn't had like a game where you're like, oh, he's taking control. Only 17 passing touchdowns on the year, which is pretty low for him. I mean, he's very accurate with the ball, but it's just he's not really a game changer, but he's good enough. You got Jonathan Brooks and running back. He's been pretty good, and they've got a good backup, it seems. Mainly just Jonathan Brooks is very good. Meanwhile, they've got Xavier Worthy. That dude is awesome as a wide receiver. I think if Quinn Ewers was more prolific, Xavier Worthy would be having one heck of a season. He's a great wide receiver. But it's just kind of they don't have a lot of elite pieces, I don't think, besides Xavier Worthy, which you're limited by your quarterback. But they have a lot of good pieces. Their wide receiver core is solid. Their running backs are solid. Their quarterback is solid. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State, I mean, they have a guy who maybe should be getting more Heisman talk with Ollie Gordon. He's been killing it. 21 touchdowns, 800 total scrimmage yards, and leading the nation in rushing. But after that, I mean, their quarterback has more interceptions than touchdowns. They don't really have like a name for wide receiver that jumps off the page. It really is a running show, which, it's very good running show, but if they can stop the run, that'll be tough for Oklahoma State to get stuff going.
Yep. All right. Any other thoughts on the Big 12 games, guys?
No, I just think it's cool that all Power 5 conference championship games this year are relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise.
Exactly. I mean, so many times the ACC game didn't matter, but now you got a fourth-ranked team, and the Big 12 matters. Pac-12 matters. So, all right. Whoopa, any other thoughts you got with the Big 12 before we move on?
Ooh, wait, sorry, me?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Anything? I've pretty much hit everything I have. I think. Like I said, Oklahoma State has some really, really good players, but Texas has much more rounded roster. They're pretty complete. I don't know if they have a spot where you're looking at a weakness, while Oklahoma State definitely does.
All right. Well, that's the Big 12, and we will come back to it in a minute when we wrap up for our picks on that, and then we go into the Pac-12. The final. Well, I think it's going to be the final. They may somehow figure out a way. I don't see how you can't say it's not the final, because how are they going to have a conference next year?
I think you mean it's the Pac-2.
Pac-2. Oregon State. Hey, the Beavers will be in a. Well, even though some jackwagon franchise from the Midwest took my coach away from me, JT Kirk and Michigan State.
Yeah. Would you rather have us take him or Urban Meyer? That was kind of the.
Take
Urban I'd absolutely love to see Urban Meyer.
Yeah, take him.
I'd love to see. I would have loved to see Urban Meyer go in there and just walk all over Jim Harbaugh with a different school.
Yeah,
all over again. That would have been
hilarious.
Sweet justice. So
but I will tell you got a good one coming in Jonathan Smith, a former Beaver quarterback. I am so sad that. But then again, how do you stay at a school like that with the future in doubt of whether they'll still have the same athletic budget? Because unless they get in the Big 12 or Big 10, there's you can't build the Pac-12 to get them. Even though they had one of the worst TV deals. You still was more money than what you can get when you bring in the Mountain West and the holdovers out there from the other smaller schools. But
I think the most likely scenario would be apparently it's financially beneficial for them to not do anything the next season or two.
That's what I've heard too. Yeah.
But long term, I think they'll either end up in the Big 12 or the Mountain West. But
I think Mountain West makes both teams irrelevant.
It would be a very hard pill for them to swallow to join the Mountain West.
Big 12 or nothing.
I hope, but I from what I understand, there was some sort of agreement, with the Pac-12 through at least 2024 that just said like, hey, we're paying out this money. So even though all those Pac-12 teams are leaving, they still have to pay money, and there's not going to be the revenue sharing, I guess, because Oregon State and Washington State are still left behind. So they're going to get a pretty big payday next year and somewhat this year as well, because they're still, they're the only ones profiting from it. But after that, then the money kind of dries up.
Yeah, and they're going to use that money to pay Mountain West schools for the next year or two to play them.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And I think they're going to – I think it's good. It can keep them relevant for a bit. Hopefully, I would love for the Big 12 to add them. But we'll see. I think it's a nice situation for them. As in, if they didn't have that, it'd kind of be a death sentence already. They'd be done for.
Yeah.
But now they've got a little bit of a chance.
Yep. Well, honestly, neither one of these teams should have been in this game. I think that the Pac-12 should have declared Oregon State and Washington State the co-champions and let them play for the title, but they didn't listen to me.
This is just the Big Ten
Yeah.
conference again. If you want me to cover this one again, Dad, man, I'll totally do it because
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm
Big Ten
gonna
Championship West.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time unless we got some Pac-12 fans out there. Really, this game is a repeat of a game earlier this year. It will be an exciting game. You got Michael Penix for Washington, who thought was going to end up at Tennessee years ago, against Bo Nix, the former Auburn quarterback. As you can see, both teams score a lot of points, 38 for Washington, 45.3 for Oregon. But Oregon's really got a really tough defense at under 16 points a game. Washington gives up a little more at 23 points a game. In terms of offensive statistics, the Ducks are throwing for 350 yards a game, running for almost 200. Very similar numbers for Washington, except, not as prolific on the running attack as Oregon is in here. Turnovers on defense, Oregon has a +9 turnover margin, but Washington's kind of balanced, just only one more turnover than they've gotten from their oppositions, than they've given up. So it's statistically, this could be a very exciting game. This could be a track meet game between these two teams. Everybody jokes about the Big 12 not playing defense. This could be a high scoring 40, 44, 42-40 game or something, 45-42 between these two teams. So looking at this teams this year, of course, everybody's Western Slaughterhouse, Portland State, 81 points for Oregon. Boy, don't you feel good about yourself? But they met earlier this season. Washington wins. Oregon went on the road, loses only by a field goal, 36-33. But you look at common opponents. Washington crushed JT's Michigan State early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Washington State. Oregon beat Washington State better by 14. Washington beat Washington State in the Apple Cup by 3. Oregon beat the Beavers pretty well in the Civil War, 31-7. While Washington struggled a little bit with the Beavers, only winning by 2 in Corvallis. Both teams handled USC this year. Utah, Oregon beat Utah by a much wider margin. So Stanford is just Stanford, although Washington struggled with Stanford comparatively speaking. So if you try to look for matchups or trends between common opponents, you can see you could try to infer some things, but that's not always good. You can tell a lot there, but I do see enough trends to give Oregon more of an advantage in this. But looking at the scores head-to-head this year, they're very two exciting teams offensively, should make for a well of a game. What do y'all think?
Now, Dadman, I'd like to say something on this, if I may. I looked at this a little bit differently when I looked at this schedule. I'm leaning to being a Washington fan out of these two schools. When I saw them play, I loved the way Washington played in that really close victory. They've beaten 3 ranked opponents this year, and Oregon's beaten 1. So when you look at quality wins on this list, I'm looking at Washington over Oregon State, over who else was it? Over Oregon, and then they also beat Arizona.
All right.
So if you're looking at, okay, who's really had to play a tougher schedule here and come out better for it, I think Washington's taken away the positive experience of doing that. Not to say that a ranking in a number is everything, but when you're looking at the big game kind of a thing, I just think Washington's got an edge on them, on Oregon on this.
Yeah, but Oregon has more quality losses, and that's what really matters in the CFP.
Well, yeah.
I look at that
as a media darling. I think it's Oregon, right?
But I look at Washington though with that game against Arizona State, a very, very bad Arizona State team, and barely squeaks out the win at home. So
refs bailed them out a little bit too. The refs going. I think there's been some things that kind of go with what JT Kirk was saying about the refs want to give the best chance of getting a Pac-12 team into the CFP, which I think, no matter what happens in this game, Pac-12 champion is going to the playoffs.
Right.
And there were some calls in the Arizona State game that are a little questionable, but I wonder. Sometimes I wondered. I'm like, is this what's going on right now?
Well,
Yeah,
the
when
only
you
thing I
don't
would,
have a horse in the race and you see some stuff, you're going, I wonder.
Yeah.
For
the
sure.
only thing I would question is if, for some reason, Oregon like maybe beats Washington close, and Alabama beats Georgia, does Alabama leapfrog Oregon? Yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye on.
I see. I think if that happens, I think Alabama might leapfrog Oregon, but I think Oregon will leapfrog Georgia. I just think if you're getting with the team, if Washington wins, it's a no-brainer. If Oregon wins, they have one loss that they avenged. One close loss they avenged in a neutral site victory. I feel like they're going to definitely get the edge on that.
Yeah, basically, Florida State losing would take care of a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see what happens with that game. All right. So we'll move on from the Pac-12. We kicked that around. If there's comments and stuff in the chat, I don't see any. But hey, all right. So we will now turn it over to Small Town Republic and the SEC.
By the way, Dadman, I think it is impressive that Oregon scored at least 31 in every game. Regardless of the competition, that's and they beat themselves in that regular season matchup against Washington.
Mm-hmm.
They went for it on fourth down twice, where they really should have either kicked it, a field goal, or a punt, or whatever. And
a road game too. Yep, exactly.
That is so many points. 31 plus is so many points in a college game every single week.
Exactly.
Dadman really likes it when teams go for it on fourth down.
No, God, stop. No. I mean,
that's the whole stream right there.
Well, they got that in Gainesville. Jeez. Okay. But hey, let's talk to something meaningful at the SEC, which is the SEC championship game this Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia, featuring the two teams that I predicted at the beginning of the season, and a lot of people picked. So hey, we got a return, and we're going to turn this over to Small Time Republic now. Small Time, right. You have a good one with this one.
All right, yeah. Let me try to share here. Let's see here. This looks like it may not let me share that.
If you do present and share screen, then I can then I can add it to this.
Let's see. There we go.
Okay, there is. Okay, I see that. Okay, now you're sharing. Okay, there it is. All right, here we go. All right, there we go.
So let me make this a little bit smaller. Magnify here, just so you can see this. And so basically, just a couple different areas on the spreadsheet to look at real quick. With Alabama and Georgia, this is basically their national rankings. So out of the 130 whatever teams, where they rank nationally, there's a really good website called CFB Stats that has all this information. So it's not all this information, but a lot of it. Kind of use that as one of the resources. That and ESPN had some of the latter stuff. But offensively, looks like Georgia has the edge there. They're 6th in the nation, whereas Alabama's 49th. So basically, whoever had the edge, statistically, I highlighted them in yellow. So as you can see, for the most part, Georgia, has had better numbers. So better overall total offense by a good amount. Better rushing offense, 31st in the nation versus 45th. Better in passing, a top 10 passing offense for Georgia, which is very interesting because when I think of Kirby Smart, I think of, a coach that likes to pound the rock. So that was surprising when I saw they were 8th in the country in passing. Although I think Carson Beck is a better NFL prospect than Stetson Bennett was. So I think that allows them to sling the ball around the field a little bit.
Carson Beck isn't getting AARP while playing in college football games.
Yes, he's also not getting into drunken fights.
Yeah, you have that too.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that was a plus for Bedden. You don't know. That's what made him
Could
good.
be. But yeah, he legit was, I think, 25 last year. So in total defense there, you get, they're not too far off there. Georgia's 9th in the country, Alabama's 17th. Rush defense, again, Georgia's a little bit better there. Pass defense, they're both top 15 in the country as far as that goes. Strength of record, which is basically some of these latter stats here I have are a little bit subjective in terms of, their record is this good because we rank these teams that way. Well, it's inherently a subjective process, but basically how they do against their record. So Georgia's 4th in the country, Alabama's 7th in terms of if other teams played that schedule. FPI, the Football Power Index, I don't quite understand it, but they're pretty much neck and neck there. 5th in the country.
I was going to say, I have no idea how they get the Football Power Index.
Sometimes
greatly confuses me.
Sometimes the FPI will have like a 9-3 team ahead of like a 11-1 team.
Well, it's got like Penn State is number 4. I don't understand.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they're not the number 4 team. I don't know.
What they're saying is that if Penn State's offense would just show up, they're a top 4 team.
If they could just
only.
not play Ohio State and Michigan, they'd be really good.
Yeah. James Franklin is also one of those go for it on 4th downs and go for 2-point conversions when he doesn't have to, guys.
Yeah, and that bit him in the butt though against, was it Michigan a few weeks ago?
Yeah,
Well,
hit him in both games.
What bit him in the butt against Michigan is that Michigan only ran the ball for over half the game, and they still couldn't stop it. So
Yeah, that's true.
anyway, this is about the SEC. Sorry, I just always see that, and I don't understand that.
James Franklin is still the one man that made Vanderbilt respectable. So,
Yep. And then strength of schedule, Alabama's, got that by a significant margin. I'm sure playing Texas at a conference, and then the SEC West was maybe a little bit stronger with, Ole Miss and LSU than the East, which, Missouri and I don't know who you want to put there in the
Tennessee, and Tennessee had an off year.
Tennessee.
Yeah, well, Tennessee had an off year. They were supposed to be. I mean, they're in I think 8-4. I mean, a lot down from what was projected to be.
So they just had a normal year for Tennessee.
Yeah, a normal year. No, a normal year would have been 6-6, but
Well, we know that Joe Milton can throw at 90 yards, but he can't throw at 9 yards.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So
kind of like your buddy last year, Daniel.
Oh yeah, Anthony Richardson. Oh yeah, that's yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but we see what, and I won't. Gardner Minshew's a starter in Indianapolis. Who would have thought this early? But okay, go ahead. Let's SEC.
Yeah, Richardson's kind of like Josh Allen. He's a project. Game control, Alabama 5th in the country, Alabama 9th. In other words, how well do they dominate their opponents?
I've never seen that stat. Game control. How, like you said, subjective. That's
pretty cool. I hadn't heard of that one either.
Yeah. Basically, the way I understand it is how dominant they were in comparison to a typical team playing that same schedule.
Okay.
Maybe they beat a team by 3 touchdowns that most every other team would only maybe beat by 3 points. Average win probability, Georgia 4, Alabama 17. Again, that's kind of similar to some of the other stats in terms of if just a generic team was playing, how well would they do against their opponents? In terms of talent, I got that one off of a recruiting website. If you look at basically the ranking, the players' rankings coming out of high school, Alabama has the most talented roster in the country. Georgia has the second most talented roster. My team has to play both of those every year. So that's all.
Now, see, I always discount those because for years and years and years and years, Michigan would always get, the number 1 5-star recruiting class in the Big Ten. And you're sitting here going, okay, that's because the magazine that's saying this, has the largest number of subscriptions going to University of Michigan fans. So, all of a sudden they're ranked super high in their recruiting. And then they would end up with an 8-win season, lose to Ohio State, and then lose, on New Year's Day.
Yeah, that's also with Texas. They consistently had a top 5, top 10 recruiting class. And then when you actually get down to it, they couldn't develop anyone. So it's cool you
Right.
got this really good prospect, but your coaching is awful.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Or the prospects weren't really 5-star recruits. to
Oh
begin
yeah,
with,
you get that a
but
lot too.
you retroactively made them that way. And anyway,
Yeah.
didn't mean to
Okay.
sidetrack you here. Small time Republic.
No problem. I do think the whole recruiting process has become, the recruiting rankings has become more of an exact science in recent years. Just
Okay.
the fact that you have more analysts that do that as like a full-time job. So is an exact science? No. Are they going to typically try to favor the blue blood programs in terms of how they rank their classes? Yes. But, I think a lot of times if you have like a Michigan team with a lot of talent that goes 8-4, I think you need to start looking at coaching.
They've done that. They've been scouting quarterbacks out of 8th grade, which is wild.
Mm.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And yet they have to keep getting them on the portal. Anyway.
Yeah, there's already like 10 quarterbacks on the portal.
Oh, geez. Well, again, go back and look at my playlist. I talked to Culture Casino about that a few weeks among NIL too. It's a brave new world in college football these days. So as we can wrap up finish our talk about the SEC, what is this table here, Small Time Republic?
So what this is basically the common opponents. So that they, or I should say, it shows that their conference, the teams they played, their common opponents highlighted in red, the numbers next to each team. So Ole Miss 14, Mississippi State 23, etc. That's how many points Alabama beat that team by. So Alabama beat Ole Miss by 14. They beat Mississippi State by 23. Same concept over on the right. Well, if you look at the red opponents, Georgia beat Ole Miss by 35. Alabama only beat them by 14. Georgia beats Tennessee by 28. Alabama beats them by 14. Kentucky, Georgia, those are both blowouts. So I guess you can kind of write both those off. And then Alabama and Georgia both beat Auburn by 1 score. So, but even there with the common opponents, Georgia has the edge in terms of margin of victory. And then the total is how many points they scored in conference play, or in terms of the point differential. So overall, they had a differential too, even outside of the common opponents. So, looking at all the numbers, you would think Georgia would be the favorite, and according to the guys in the desert, they are. With that said, I think with the talent level being so close and both teams having, really good coaching staffs, I think it's very hard to predict who will win. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to the end. Over on the right, I've got listed some of the injuries here. For Alabama, their starting running back, Jace McClellan, is not expected to play. They've got some guys behind him.
That's a huge loss, but that's still a huge loss for them.
Yep, they've got some guys behind him that'll play, but that is certainly a loss. Yeah. And as far as Georgia has, and both these teams, I'm sure, have more injuries than just these, but Ladd McConkey is highly questionable. Ra Thomas is likely not to play. Tate Ratledge is expected to play, and Brock Bowers is expected to play. But with them having 2 at the wide receiver position, those first 2 names, where it's probably 50% or less with each of them, that could be a factor.
And McConkey's been injured off and on all year. I mean, he missed the first several games of the season too. So he's been fighting the injury bug all season. Brock Bowers came back after that ankle injury, but yeah. It's like they say too, this time of year, whether it's NFL or college, nobody's healthy. Everybody's dinged up, banged up, or then you just have to have your depth to take over.
Yep. But anyway, I'll go ahead and close it out. But
But that's wonderful. Thank you. That was neat for the statistics.
Yeah. So, again, in term, both of these coaches, if this was several years ago, I would give the edge to Alabama just because Kirby was still kind of inexperienced, but now he's been there since I think 2016 was his first year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's sort of settled in terms of his head coaching tenure, and I think you're going to see a highly competitive game, and it'll be interesting. Both teams struggled last Saturday, only winning by one possession each. Now Georgia did rest several guys last week that maybe could have played, but
yeah, their game was close against Georgia Tech, closer than it should have been. But and also there was always the old adage about Saban's assistants can't beat him. But then that Jimbo won, and then Kirby's been winning, so that's kind of been disproven now. So it's a brave new world, and we got the students becoming the masters now. But one thing with Alabama, and I'm figuring you probably can agree to this point, being a rival over in the West, is everybody's been trying to bury Saban for a couple of years now, and bury Alabama and all this stuff. But it's like, yeah, they might have a hiccup a year or two, but they still haven't fallen off. And I don't think Nick's going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, if you look at his tenure, they've won 11 or more games every year since 2011. And not only that, they've been contenders every year since 2008, which that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Their consistency is just absurd. The only game I can recall them getting blown out, and again, Saban's first year, I don't know if he may blow him out or not, but since 2008, the only game I can remember where they just got totally, bombed was against Clemson in the 2018 national championship game out in Santa Clara. I believe Clemson won by like 28, something like that. That's the only game where I felt like he didn't have his team prepared. So that's a tremendous testament. And maybe they were prepared. Maybe they just got, maybe just Clemson was that on fire. But that consistency tells me that, you definitely shouldn't count Alabama out.
Not at all. Not at all anytime soon. So, hey, we got 8 people still watching with us. Make sure you've hit that like button, smash it, and leave comments or questions in the moments we're going to wrap up here. JT or Whoopa, any other thoughts on this SEC championship game?
I really don't like Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban.
Spoken as a true Michigan State
about this matchup. Yeah.
No, I don't like either team, but I'll cheer for my kids and Georgia on this one. I mean, it's I have to do that. I hate doing it, but it makes Zang happy. I'll go with it. But it's going to be a good game. It's definitely the 2 best teams in the league this year by far. Tennessee had too many holes. Missouri has holes. Missouri does not have the defense that can win a championship, but Alabama, this game, Jalen Milroe answered my question. When I started the season, the whole thing was Alabama would go as far as Jalen Milroe, and he's learned how to throw the football. The coordinators have learned how to call an offense, would also use his running ability and stuff. And now you've got a functioning Alabama offense that you did not have when they played against USF earlier this year. So,
yep. We'll say this. Nick Saban, I think when he went from East Lansing down to Baton Rouge, I think, he went through Mississippi on the way down. And I think he passed by the crossroads there in Mississippi and may have made a deal along the way.
Exactly. Well, we do have a question before we go to wrap everything up. We got our picks. Lisa asked, which conference is the best? JT.
Oh yeah, I answered that. It's obviously the Big Ten.
Okay.
Or Big Ten adjacent this year. I mean, you're looking at 2 teams that are jumping ship up there in the top 10, right? I'm trying to remember who is still in the top 10 after all these weeks. So you're looking at Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Washington, which will be future. I mean, I don't see another conference able to dominate like that. Now, will they beat each other up, and you might not see as many of those in future years? No, but I think you throw a Michigan or an Ohio State at the rest of these teams, and they're going to be in trouble.
Okay, Whoopa, what do you think? Best conference?
Hold on a second.
Okay, well, a good small time republic then. Small time best conference.
I really
football.
don't have that strong of an opinion. I mean, it's really becoming the Power Two between the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could look at bowl game records, since there's a lot of Big Ten SEC games over the years. But in recent years, it's even hard to determine that because so many players opt out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Exactly,
the opting out. All this.
Yeah, I guess I'll say SEC just because I'm a homer, but
okay.
I think you basically the top half of the SEC and the top half of the Big Ten are both really good, and then the bottom half of those leagues are not very good.
Nope, not at all.
Right. Out of all your choices, I think you're right. You really only have two.
Yep.
I mean,
go ahead.
I think the best conference is the American Conference.
No.
That's my take.
All right.
Patriotic.
All right. Well, but what about worst conferences? I mean, of the Power Five, conference.
Oh, I was going to say Conference USA.
I'll stick with the Power Five, but I think the worst of the big ones is the Atlantic Coast Conference. I think with Clemson falling down as it is, I think this FSU team has a benefit of a lot of bad competition within the league. Clemson is down. FSU had some games that they should have lost this year. I just, when Duke is becoming a top 25 team and one of your powers, there's a problem in your league. So I would say the ACC is the worst of the Power 5 football conferences. Who wants to go next?
Don't be surprised if Duke's quarterback ends up at Auburn next year, by the way. Riley Leonard. So just a little feeling I have.
Wouldn't blame him. You got a great offensive mind down in the Plains.
He wanted Brian Harsin didn't offer him a scholarship out of high school.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's one thing, Dad, man, I can't believe you didn't lead with this. Breaking news this week: Conference USA is inviting Delaware in 2025.
Wow.
Oh wow!
I know that was high on the radar.
Yep. Man, it's the conference expansions continue.
Never ends.
Never ends. Why? Delaware is a Division I AA playoff power, but JT or Whoopa, worst conference?
ACC.
Yeah, I would say ACC as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
For all the reasons you already stated.
I don't know. Are we talking about overall or like this year?
Just overall compared to like this year. Take this year compared to all of the 5 power conferences.
This year, I think Big 12 is the worst, and I hate to say it, but they in the past. I think Big 12 has been pretty good. They've had a lot of good teams come out of it. Maybe not like top tier, but I think better than a lot of the people that come out in the Pac-12 and the ACC. This year, I feel like everyone sucks. I don't know. It's been very frustrating. It's not just Baylor. It's like a lot of traditional teams that you see in the top are doing bad.
Is it like Texas has gotten where it is by default?
Yeah, and like if you get like Oklahoma State, usually a pretty good team, and I really respect Oklahoma State because my friends went to a game and they were trash talking a lot, and they said that the fans are very nice to them, and they said they felt bad afterwards because. So I like them, but like when you've got a team playing that's lost by 30 to UCF and lost to South Alabama, it's like that's pretty rough. I don't know. It's again, I think if you look in the past, I would say the worst has been the Pac-12.
Right.
I mean, one of their big juggernauts last year, USC losing to Tulane in a bowl game. I don't know. It's all very interesting. But in the past, I would have said a different team. This year, I feel like the Big 12's had a really down year. Hopefully, it'll bounce back.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's go ahead and round the horn now about who we are going to win these games. Okay, we'll start alphabetical order. We'll go around ACC. We got Louisville and Florida State. JT, who do you have winning?
Florida State.
Okay, Whoopa.
Louisville.
Shoot, my pen doesn't work. Leave it. No fail.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Okay. JT is FSU. Whoopa is Louisville. Small time.
Florida State wins by like a point, and then all heck breaks loose when they end up 5th in the rankings.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
I am actually going with Whoopa on this one. So
Yeah.
Louisville. I just don't trust the quarterback situation at FSU. It's just so watching how anemic they played against Florida. I mean, they will have had more time to get ready, but I saw enough of that game against a very bad Gator defense that unless FSU plays lights out, pitches a shutout on defense, or holds Louisville under 17 points, I don't see that. I don't see them winning.
Also, Louisville now has some tape on that backup quarterback.
Yep, exactly. All right, we go to the Big Ten, which is Michigan, Iowa. We know JT already picked Michigan on this one. Whoopa?
Yeah, I think it's Michigan.
Yeah, small time.
Shoeless Joe will not be walking out of that
Yeah.
corn.
I think of all of the games, this is the one with the foregone conclusion. I think you made that point earlier, JT. Is it just Iowa gives you no, unless Michigan turns the ball over 6 times and their defensive scores, there's no way Iowa can score.
I mean,
So
I'm gonna say Michigan. Brian Ferentz is being fired after going 10-2 as offensive coordinator. That's how bad the
hilarious.
offense is,
That makes sense.
and has been every year.
That's his son, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
You
last
get rid
week,
of your own son on that. I mean, jeez.
Well, he doesn't want to.
last week, I know, not betting advice, just betting info. Last week, the Nebraska-Iowa game was the lowest ever over/under for a college football game that Vegas had done, and
Wow.
the under still hit.
wow. I think an Iowa game earlier. I think Iowa played Minnesota, and they had something about what you set the under. And I said like 20 points, and it was like 10-7 or something. Yeah.
No, it was last week. It was 25. It was either 25.5 or 24.5.
Yeah.
And there was 23 total points. So
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is
right.
I picked the lowest of the lows. So, but yeah. All right. So let's go to Oklahoma State, Texas. Whoop up, Big 12 man. Who do you take in this game?
You know what? I'm gonna will this into existence. Oklahoma State's winning.
All right. OSU, Cowboys. JT.
I'm of similar sentiments to Whoopa here. I always like watching an Oklahoma State game on the rare chance I get it on TV. Something about that school.
I'm a
I like
man.
'em.
Sorry. I love one of the best coaches press conference of all time.
I'm 40.
and I'd love to see Texas taking down a peg. I'm going to go Oklahoma State.
All right. No love for Austin tonight, then I hear.
To go off of what Lisa was asking earlier, like what uniforms have the best chance of winning? Oklahoma State's uniforms are great. So
Yes.
if you're going, they got the uniform advantage for sure.
Okay, uniform. You heard that, Lisa. Uniform advantage per Whoopa for Oklahoma State. So, okay, small time Republic. How about you in this game?
I will go with Texas.
Yeah, and I agree. Not because we're going to be future brethren with the Longhorns, or that. I don't.
You're never brothers with the Longhorns. Big 12 fan for a while. They're never your partners. They're always the enemy.
You got a screaming thank you from Lisa because so thank you.
Yes.
All right. So, all right. Let's see. Okay. I'm going. All right. Now that brings us to the Pac-12. What the heck with this Pac-12. Washington and Oregon, really, like I said earlier, I believe could be the fascinating game of the night, of the weekend, with the potential point. Yeah, style. That's true meaning to the word style points, Lisa. You're right about that. Absolutely.
By the way, Friday night game.
Yes, Friday night game tomorrow night, Oregon and Washington. Battle of the crappy ass uniforms versus. Actually, I like Washington's pretty good. I like that gold with the purple. But God, would somebody please stop these damn clothing contracts? How many friggin' shades of the fluorescent green can the friggin' Ducks ever come up with? My God, they clash with everything.
They do get ridiculous.
You don't like the feather pattern?
No feather pat. Now they got the University of Florida doing blackouts and everybody else wearing. It's just like, come on, can we not keep tradition?
I wish that Baylor
It's
changed
Nike's
their.
fault.
Yes.
Yeah, Baylor changed their uniforms recently. I don't like them. They're kind of more classic, but they haven't had that uniform in a while. I wish we went more blackouts, because our blackout uniforms were awesome, and we wore them all the time. It's like, why don't just stick with that?
Yep.
Now they got to do these weird uniforms.
I know, it's all the time. Well, I'm going with the Ducks. I don't like it as a Beaver. I don't care, but Bo Nix has become a good quarterback at college. I had concerns about him at Auburn. Might have been the talent and coaching around him at the time, but he's turned a good college career up there in Eugene, and the Ducks have been rolling. And so I'll go with Oregon in this game. Small Town Republic. How about you?
I'll go Oregon. Interestingly enough, I know the guys out in the desert has Oregon as a 10-point favorite, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, I think whoever wins this game wins the Heisman. Interestingly enough,
I kind of agree with that. I think I would agree.
But yeah, I'll go Oregon, but not confidently.
Okay. Well, but Washington's really good. Michael Penix Jr. Has been really good. Although I was not impressed with Penix. Actually, seeing him throw the ball against the Beavers, maybe it was the weather. I did not like the way he threw the ball well. I did not think he had as good of an arm as his numbers. God, I thought you were lurking as a Beaver passing on the text. I heard that. Anyway, Bucky's Crafting. It's been a while.
Bucky.
Good to see you tonight. Hey, and Bucky's Crafting. Let me say this while you're here. I don't know if you found out or knew that the Missus is actually streaming now. Let me pause real second. I need to put this out here anyway for everybody, if you don't mind, because Bucky's, the Missus has actually started streaming on her own channel, and she's trying to get to 100 subscribers by next week. She's at like 83, I think, right now. So I'm going to put her link out in the chat, because she made the graphics again tonight, and all this from me. And, she's doing a morning podcast at 9 a.m. It's for positive, news to start each day. And, so so check out the Mrs. So here, the Mrs. channel. Okay. But Becky, it's good to see you again. You have been missed so much. Okay. And sorry, it's been a rough month, but hey, getting back in life. Well, listen, if you can catch the Mrs. streams in the morning at 9 a.m. because it's positive. It's great news stories, what we celebrate, and all kinds of funny memes. So, hey, yes. Oh, Bucky said, I've been waiting for, she started streaming. You can go, I put the link to her channel out there. You go ahead and start seeing some of the stuff she's done already, but every day, 9 a.m. to see that. And thank you guys for your patience. I wanted to make sure to get that out. So I didn't forget, especially, if people come in and out, I wanted to make sure Bucky saw that, but good to see you again, Bucky's Crafting. All right. So Whoopa and JT, you guys, with this one, I was not convinced with Penix throwing the ball. That's another reason, I've always been hard on Bo Nix, but when I saw Penix throwing the ball, I didn't think he really had the best arm. But Whoopa, how do you see this game going?
I do kind of see Oregon. I want Washington to win. I'm going to be rooting for Washington, but I can only will one team to victory, and that's Oklahoma State. So I got to.
I gotcha. Okay, JT, how are you seeing this game?
Well, back in 2015, I saw Saturday night primetime game, Michigan State versus Oregon. Michigan State winning, and that was one of the greatest games I've ever been to. And so I wish the same for Washington. So I am going to go with Washington. I've loved this team, getting to watch them the past few years. Yeah, the folks in the desert may not like it, but you know what? They beat them once, they'll do it again.
All right. All right. JT with the Washington, the future Big 12 matchup. The Big 10. Damn it. Are they going to rename that damn conference?
They should
when
just
bring
be
them
the
on?
big.
The
Yeah,
big,
the big
yeah,
conference.
just the big
Yeah.
blob, you know?
That way they don't have to worry about math and numbers and all this kind of stuff.
I think it's funny they were talking about back the USC Texas national championship they had back in the day. Someone was joking around like, "Oh, this is my favorite SEC Big Ten matchup," which is like it's weird to say, but that is true now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So now we will move into the SEC to wrap this show up. All right. Small Time Republic, we'll start with you, sir.
By the way,
How is what? Look at that. Mr. Niblick says, spoken like a true Lions fan.
Yeah,
Or
we
name
won't
it
go into
best.
that.
Okay.
I
All
never
right.
thought I would pick the Lions to beat my Saints at home, but I have for this weekend. But
Oh, wow.
I hope that Jameson Williams scores a lot of fantasy points because my team needs to win, and that's the only thing that matters in football, in case you're wondering. But
Is winning. Yeah.
it's my fantasy team winning. I don't care if your teams lose. I need them to get me the fantasy points, and the other guys to not get fantasy points. It's been going well the last couple of weeks. I started off 1-6, and now I'm 6-6. But I need to win and another team to lose. Anyway, that's enough about my fantasy.
Exactly.
I haven't stopped thinking about them for the last 4 weeks.
I need some help myself there. I'm on the edge in my league. But
right.
but yeah, as far as you mentioned the Pac-12. Cal blew out UCLA in the last ever Pac-12 regular season game. That was late Saturday night.
Right.
That'll be a great trivia question.
No
down
more.
the road.
I'm gonna miss Pac-12 after dark. I actually like those games.
I did too. I love West Coast football.
I hate when they go to conferences. I hate when they go to overtime. That's too late.
Yeah.
Finish in regulation, then we're good.
That's like when Colorado State played that game this year.
Oh my gosh, that was
great, but it was so late. But
it was too late.
Well, there will be some Big Ten fans complaining when you have Ohio State playing Oregon at 9 Eastern.
Oh my goodness!
Out in Oregon.
Or worse, the other way. Big Ten loves playing 12 noon games on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you can get Washington fans up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
That's the thing. I don't understand.
That's a tough ask.
I don't like a lot of those games are noon Eastern or 11. They're doing something 11 Eastern, I think, right? Or am I wrong?
I like it if it's my team, especially if they're playing on the road. Because if you win the game, then you can watch all the other games and not be stressed.
See, I just hate when it's because the Big 12 does that. They'll have these noon Eastern games. You got one team on the Eastern time zone. Just play your games on the Central time. It just frustrates me.
But yeah.
Well, the only time zone that matters is the Eastern time zone.
That's incorrect.
We've already solved that one.
That is false.
Right, Dadman?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
When I am elected president, we will only go by Central Time.
Bucky Scratton said, I realize I really can't get into sports mostly because I get dangerously competitive. I like listening to you guys talk nonsense, though. I listen to this while I practice being an old lady. Hey, the missus is right there. I mean, you talk about competitive. Oh, you see it in the Fortnite. You get the missus at a football game or a hockey. Oh, man, she gets into it. It's okay. It's okay to be competitive. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
You saved yourself there, Dadman.
What's that?
When you were calling her competitive, I thought you were going to call her an old lady, and I was going to wish you well in the doghouse.
No. I tell you ought to see her at hockey up next to the boards.
Oh man,
yeah, geez, yeah,
hockey games
exactly.
exciting.
All
I like
right.
watching these.
Small time. Who you got in this game? If I didn't hear you before.
Yeah, for the SEC,
Yep.
I've got Georgia again. It's
All
a
right.
tough pick.
Yep.
This will be the last year that that CBS has the SEC games.
Yep.
So kind of bittersweet there. They've been on CBS for many years. They're going all in with ABC, ESPN beginning next year, and so all these people that are saying, they hope Disney goes broke. Well, I can tell you the SEC does not want Disney to
No.
go broke because
No.
their financial future is dependent on them on that not happening.
I'm going to miss the tradition with the CBS deal, though. But I think the Rocky Top fans don't. They think CBS hates them, especially Gary Danielson. So,
Yep. Well, Danielson's better than RG3 and some of these other
oh god,
clowns.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can't stand that guy, and I'm a Baylor fan. Like, he needs to shut up. He was really cool when he wasn't doing sports stuff. Now it's like, oh my goodness, this man needs to cut it out. Like, he says the dumbest things imaginable. I don't understand how he does it.
And they get paid to say the
Right.
dumbest things imaginable. Lots of money. Lisa was only ugging for the time zone thing. So, all right. Okay, so Whoopa, who do you have in this game?
I feel like I have to take Georgia.
Okay.
As much. This is interesting just because, like, both these teams, both early in the season and late in the season, had games that, like, you're like, really, they're struggling. USF, the whole thing about Georgia scoring like 7 points on UT Martin at one point, or like they were losing to South Carolina, but they've pulled through. And I feel like at this point, it's hard to go against the team that. When's the last time Georgia lost a football game?
Oh God, it's
2 years ago in this
2 years
game.
ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's hard to go against that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you believe it when you see it. That's the thing, is that you. I've always said that, and this year I violated my rule a few times with the go with the big dog till they're beaten, and a couple times that's why I didn't trust Ole Miss, and then they finally did beat LSU that game. So. But hey, all right. So, JT, who have you got in this game?
Well, Georgia cursed my Detroit Lions for many, many, many years by giving them Matthew Stafford, who never did anything for them.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they pass that curse on to Alabama with Nick Saban.
Okay.
Keep that tradition going. I'm going with Georgia.
All right. Well, there you go. Hey, this is, I think, by far the hardest of all these games for me to pick. Because the two teams are so good, they're so balanced. It's going to be a shame to see either one not included in the 4-team playoff. Even though because Alabama's gelling at the right time, they had their trip ups earlier this season. But Jalen Milroe has done great. But I tell you, this Georgia defense is beyond belief, and I think it's going to be a better defense than he's seen in weeks. And I'm going with the Dogs. I mean, until they lose, you go with a hot hand.
If you're Kirby Smart, you tell your team, I don't care what you hear. If you look at what's out there, we don't expect to lose this game and sneak in as the 4th seed.
Right. Exactly. No, take anything for granted. No.
No,
especially. Go ahead.
It's funny with the CFP. If all the undefeated teams win, or honestly, Pac-12 either way, I think it's fine. But if all the undefeated teams win, you could have like the first. You could have like the last year of the 4-team playoff, and it's still pretty much the only year where there's no controversy. That'd be kind of funny.
Yep. All right. Well, here's how we have it. We have in the ACC, Louisville, FSU. JT takes FSU. Whoopa takes Louisville. Small Time takes FSU. I take Louisville. We all take Michigan in the Big 12 championship game over Iowa. We split JT and Whoopa take Oklahoma State over Texas. And Small Time and I take Texas over Oklahoma State in the Big 12. In the Pac-12 championship game, JT takes Washington. The other 3 of us take Oregon. And we're all in a lockstep alignment about the Georgia Bulldogs beating Alabama Crimson Tide to win the SEC title for this year. So that's where we are with our wrap-up, guys. We'll see what happens starting tomorrow night with the Pac-12. and then we'll go into football on Saturday, and hopefully those will be some good games. I'm sorry, I just don't see how the Big 12 will be. Big 10 will be a good game, but you never know. So
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't. I mean, the track record is so bad with the offense.
I think that's a good, something that I should think about for my presidential campaign.
There you go. Exactly.
Just we will replace the death penalty with forcing inmates to watch Iowa offense only.
Yes, exactly.
Stop, no.
My campaign would be: we're not going to pass any legislation at any point for anything.
There we go.
Gridlock.
That's pretty good.
There you go.
I respect
Or make
that.
them watch them play Kentucky, Iowa, and Kentucky. Even though the only team Kentucky could run over was Florida this year. Yeah. So
my thing would be to abolish divisions within these conferences. You look at the games that we were all picking: ACC, Big 12, Pac-12. We were the most divided on those. They don't have divisions. They just take the two at-large teams, right?
Yeah.
The games where there's no debate, SEC and Big 10 division conferences. And I think it really hurts the Big 10, at least the way they have them split up, because of just the level of talent you're able to draw on these. And they shoved way too many teams that don't have the opportunity to get talent into the West.
Well, and the thing is you will never have a Michigan-Ohio State championship game. The de facto championship game really is Michigan-Ohio State at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
In many seasons, yes.
Yeah,
in many seasons, yes. Otherwise, it's Penn State versus Ohio State, or Michigan, Ohio State, or Michigan State versus Pitt. It's one of those four. And when I say teams that don't have the opportunity to get talent, you look at the Big 10 East, and they're all in states with high population density relative to the schools in the Big 10 West. And if you don't have Wisconsin being a good team that year, you don't have any chance, because you look at, when I'm talking about that, the average distance a recruiting staff has to go to visit a recruit in a state like Ohio. They can go anywhere they want. They're really close. Michigan, they're close. Penn State, in Pennsylvania, even, they're close. You go out to someplace like Nebraska, those guys are driving 300 miles, 400 miles to go visit one recruit. And you don't get the talent draw like you do at some of those other schools, because you're spending your time commuting instead of visiting. And look, none of these schools have the draw of the SEC or the Pac-12 in terms of climate and things like that. So it's frustrating to me. And I think the SEC protects Alabama and Georgia to a big extent too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Well, and next year, most every conference will get rid of divisions.
Yep. Even though SEC is scheduled to do that. But they're keeping an 8-game conference schedule, which is going to be hard keeping some of the traditional matchups together.
Yeah, the SEC needs to do 9. I don't know why SEC doesn't do 9.
The easy way to maintain
Bucky's crafting their
traditional matchups is just get rid of these paycheck games that are a waste of time.
Agreed.
The fans don't like watching them
it's
unless
a
you're
waste of
playing
time.
a high-profile team. It's a waste of time.
I don't watch the game because either I expect to win by 50 points and then over at halftime and then get bored and walk off, or it's close and I get pissed off because my team's not winning. Hey, but real quick, I think Bucky's. I'm not sure if Bucky's up in Michigan. Says that
he might be in Ohio.
But
either way.
But hey,
He's
us
in
being that
Michigan.
close to Ohio is not a choice. So I think talking about Michigan, the Wolverines, not the Sparties. So, but hey, because there comes the Ohio shot, I thought you'd get a kick out of.
Yeah, that's great.
So.
Now, as far as the divisions, the only reason why there ever were divisions is because the NCAA had this weird requirement where you had to have divisions to have a conference championship game, and that got lifted a few years ago. But
for Big
it's the
12.
NCAA's fault that divisions ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of sense a pattern there when something's weird and doesn't make sense. It's
because the NCAA.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Of course.
So,
Of course.
It makes sense.
all right. Well, hey, this has been fun, gents. Any other thoughts before we go ahead and wrap up tonight?
Which game should we watch if we can only watch one?
I say
Obviously
that.
not the Michigan-Iowa game.
Well, I will say honestly, let me do this. If it's not your conference, so like for me in small time, we would probably most likely say the SEC. Bucky says, talking about Michigan in general, read it out. It makes you happy. All right. Okay. So small time, and I will not. I'll keep the ACC and Pac-12 in my possibilities because I'm not a homer for them. But like small time, and I won't. Well, excluding the SEC for us. So like for you, JT Kirk, anything but the Big 10 game, and Whoopa, anything but the Big 12 game. What would you watch? Because see, honestly, of all those that I think would be the most fun game is probably the Washington-Oregon game. Both teams score a lot of points. West Coast football, you want points and excitement, not a boring rundown thing. I think that's where you're going. I don't think FSU is going to be able to score enough points to make that game entertaining against Louisville. That could be a one-sided Louisville win, of course. And Oklahoma State, Texas. Well, Oklahoma State's shown a propensity to get crushed by inferior competition, like Whoop had pointed out. So, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Pac-12 game. What about you, small time?
I would say Pac-12 again. I got a little bit of a vested interest because of Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd say Pac-12.
Okay. JT Kurt?
Well, Deadman, you took the words right out of my mouth. For all those reasons you stated, I was going to say Pac-12 as well.
Okay. All right. Whoopa?
Honestly, I agree. I was going to take the Pac-12 as well. I feel like Big Ten and ACC are not going to be interesting at all. Big Ten because I think they're going to get crushed, and ACC just because even if it's close, I feel it's going to be ugly football. I don't think it's going to be entertaining. I think the Big 12, I think it could be great or it could suck. Like it could be a Texas blowout. It could be a close game. I don't know. And then SEC kind of similar. I feel like Pac-12 is definitely the most interesting, and it's one with like I feel like it's it's the only one where it's kind of winning in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, I guess kind of all of these are winning in, but like FSU, they're talking about if they win, they might not make it. Even, but Louisville's not going to make it if they win. Iowa's not going to make it if they win. Ohio State's not going to make it if they win. So it's really either Pac-12 or SEC, and even SEC, if Alabama wins, they might. I think they will make it, but it's not 100% guaranteed.
It will all depend on who's in that room.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And but Pac-12, I think it's guaranteed. If Ohio, I'm putting them in the Pac-12 now.
Oklahoma State. That OSU trips me up sometimes too, right?
Oh yeah.
Then I got Oregon State, so it's even worse. So 3.
Oh, but yeah. I think Oregon wins, they're in for sure, and Washington wins, they're in for sure. So I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, that and the SEC is just everyone has every reason to fight for that game, especially the Pac-12, where I think it's guaranteed whoever wins is in.
Yep. All right. Well, you heard it here. We'll see how it goes and how things wind up. But thank you guys for being with me tonight. We went probably almost an hour longer than I planned on, but hey, it's cool. It moved. We had fun. We had a lot to cover. Stay with me a little bit. I'm going to do the little plugs on the way out. Will you guys say? Now let's see. Bucky's Crafting says that's the game I would go to because I'd get to be with all you people and give commentary to keep everybody entertained. All right.
Yeah.
Hey,
I like that.
Yeah.
We love that, Bucky's. Yeah. We'd love to have you. We'd love to hear your commentary on that. So maybe we'll call on you soon.
Her commentary, I guarantee, would be very interesting.
I would love it. I would love it. Hey, kind of get a StreamYard up. We can't do play-by-play or anything, but we can sort of do sort of live or delayed reactions. But
Or just the John Madden statements. The team that scores the most points tends to win the
Oh
game.
my gosh.
well, hey,
So,
you know,
I
Lisa
have,
already did the John Madden stuff earlier with her, the team with the best colored uniforms, you know, stuff.
I have a funny thing, a side story. I think I've told it before, but we had the Wii and Madden '08, which is one of the best Madden games.
Right.
They had that on the Wii, and they had a telestrator mode to where any big play, like you do a good play, bad play, whatever, whoever was whoever benefited from the play, whoever either had the good play or benefited from you having the bad play, got to go into like mode where it like paused and you could move around the screen and draw circles and stuff. And me and my dad would play that game. And every time we'd always have our John Madden voice, like, well, you see this guy here, he's going to miss the tackle, and you're not supposed to do that.
Then they came right over here and bam.
Bam!
Yeah.
We're just like circling stuff. We're like, this guy on the sideline, he has a pretty nice uniform. It was so much fun. I missed that game.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey. Well, folks, thank y'all for being with us tonight. And Bucky's Crafting, I will say, pointing you out, it's really good to see you back again. We have missed you around, and I'm glad you're here. And, you know, Lisa, you know, is now throwing food out turducken. Yeah, because didn't men do the turducken? Is that what it was?
It was this big thing. I think every Thanksgiving, the turducken.
Yeah. Well, see, you know football, Lisa. You know football. You know, but hey, one day I will love to have Lisa on for any, you know, be on Fortnite, but to talk golf. Golf is a sport I do not understand, but hey, that would be fun to do. Oh, Bucky said the only sport game I went to, I watched the balloon in the sky the whole time. My uncle didn't take me to another game after that. Happy to be back. Madden, yeah, shush. Okay, yes, ma'am. All right. On that note, well, we will go ahead and really shush, but let me thank you guys again for this panel. Maybe I got an idea I want to talk to you really quickly about when we're done, but let me go ahead and before I promote myself, I want to, and I'm trying to not crash the screen is here. Crap. You know, my mouse does not move far enough, so it gets weird. Anyway. All right, you guys still here? Yeah, I haven't lost you yet.
Yep.
This is Mrs. Dabman Walking's YouTube page. If you're also on Twitch, go follow her on Twitch and watch her on Twitch to get her hours up to at least 3 so she can be monetized. She's really close. She's got 50-something followers. Tonight, she's got 83 subscribers on YouTube. So go subscribe if you haven't. If you see down here, she does the morning muses with Mrs. Dadman. She has a great format. She talks. Her theme is the daily dose of positivity. Start your morning. Talk birthdays, memes, and you know things to celebrate for the day. And you know, and then she's been doing all these other building block things. She changed the name to Block Party. Block Party with Mrs. Dadman Walking. So. That's a good name there. And you're welcome, Lisa. Thank you for coming in and doing more than luck. Thank you, everybody, for your thing, for chatting with us. And like I said, there's her channel there. Appreciate y'all for that. But on if you can at least hit the like on the YouTube side, that would help. But right now, probably watching on the Twitch side would help more. Staying there, you will lose out when she tries to pull over the YouTube chat so everybody sees it and address both sides. So you will miss the chatting on the YouTube side, but to help her really is right now is the Twitch side to get to that 3 so that she can get that average to get the final element to be able to monetize on that side. But yeah, but either way, whatever also works for you, because sometimes Twitch won't work for me. It blubs and delays. So, all right. With that, folks, my streaming is going to slow down a little. Well, it won't slow down completely, but it's going to be more squirrel. And as I feel like it, fewer planned streams coming up in the month ahead. So just to let you know, my next planned stream well, I say that I just remembered because I don't have a slide. Y'all know the movie Five Nights at Freddy's? It's a video game.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
tomorrow
Mhm.
night at 8 p.m., Hungry Boy, the missus, and me, possibly Aang, are going to talk about that movie. I don't have a slide here for that. So, exactly. Absolutely. And she goes 2 hours. She's done 6-hour block streams too. So, if you're doing your craft stuff, there's plenty of stuff the missus will be doing coming up. They'll give you plenty of stuff to listen to. So tomorrow night, so catch us for that. We won't have Buck Rogers. At least I didn't say Battlestar Galactica that time. We won't have Buck Rogers tomorrow night because Daisy's still on vacation. We just to take a couple weeks break. This kind of popped up as an all of a sudden type of thing. So we're going to do that tomorrow night as a plan. But Sunday, Carol Morales is one of our buddies that play Fortnite with on the channel. JT knows and played with her before. Went to Hawaii earlier this year. We were talking about doing a stream a couple months ago, but she went to Hawaii. She sent me a number of pictures from the Pearl Harbor Memorial, and we're going to talk about that on Sunday at 2 p.m., a daytime stream that we're going to have. So join us for that. We're going to see some of the pictures that she brought back. I'll probably talk about some of the stuff factual with the battle because that will be the weekend before the anniversary, the 80, 70, no, 8. It'd be the 88th. Wow, 80. I can't even do math in my head anymore, but it's been a long time. It's just amazing how time passes so quickly. So, but join us, 82 years. Yeah. So join us for that on Sunday. Appreciate that. Also, next Tuesday, 8 p.m., my 500 subscriber celebration. Please make plans to be here for that. This could be a 10-hour stream. Because I got a few guests coming on. I'm going to plan out some things. I'm going to try to also talk about where I started, how the channel's evolved, and things like that. And so join us for this. Come with questions. If you want to know more about me, the missus, if you want to see how things were in the early days, we'll try to bring up some stuff and have some fun with us on Tuesday night. Hope to see you there for that. Also, chill chats or something will be random and when I feel like it, along with the Fortnite funds with Dadman and Friends will be like I said, this next month is going to be a lot of random stuff, spur of the moment. So make sure you get the notifications on Twitch and on YouTube, but they don't always work. So follow me on Twitter at DadmanWalking55. That's where I always tweet when I go live just before, usually at a minimum, or when I go live. So that's the way to really find out for me. This has popped up since you've been around, Bucky. Late Night with Dadman and Friends is sometimes when I go live at 11 to 1 o'clock in the morning, just squirrel chasing with Hungry Boy and some others sometimes. So join us for one of these. Sometimes they tend to be a riot and a lot of fun. And also my streams and videos at youtube.com and twitch.tv at DadmanWalking55. Also follow me for streaming schedules and updates at DadmanWalking55 also. And on that note, folks, go enjoy your wonderful football this weekend. And yes, and that's what the miss said, need viewing hours on Twitch. Yes, exactly. So
I have one final comment, Dad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Muffet from Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
The dog. He would beat up Twiggy, or however you say it.
Twiggy. Oh gosh. I thought Muffet I thought Muffet had too much hate. I like Muffet. I thought he was pretty cool. Yep. So,
but Twiggy would get all the sarcastic quips in too during that fight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, folks, with that, thank you so much for being here. Have a good weekend. I hope to see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for a little talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. And on that note, everybody, you have a good night, and we will see you later. Bye, all.